The warm afternoon sun fell over the small garden where Mia Johnson stood in her white wedding dress. The place was beautiful: white roses, soft music, chairs arranged neatly. But the people sitting in those chairs were not calm. They whispered. They stared. Some even covered their mouths to hide small laughs. Everyone was asking the same question. Is she really going to marry him? Mia stood still at the front, her heart beating fast, but her face calm. She was a young black woman with soft brown skin and long curls falling over her shoulders. Her eyes were steady, even though almost every person in the room doubted her. Even though many of them once laughed at the man she was about to marry. Jason Miller stood beside her. He was wearing a simple suit, and his hands shook a little. Jason wasn't like other grooms. He wasn't smooth or confident. He had a slight limp when he walked, and when he spoke, his words came out slow and soft. People had made fun of him for this since he was a kid. Now those same people were sitting in her wedding, watching with disbelief. Chloe leaned forward and whispered loudly to Tina. Is this a joke? Mia could have married anyone. Why him? Tina smirked and replied, this is going to be the craziest wedding ever. Just wait, she's going to run away. Mia heard them, but she didn't move. She kept staring at the priest. Her mother, Evelyn, sat in the front row, her hands shaking slightly. She wasn't against the marriage, but she was afraid of how people talked, how people judged. She wanted her daughter to be strong, but even she felt the heavy pressure of the moment. The priest opened his book. His voice was calm, but the tension in the air was sharp. We are gathered here today to witness the union of Mia Johnson and Jason Miller. Jason swallowed hard. His nervousness was obvious, and the guests chuckled. Someone whispered, he can't even stand still. How will he handle marriage? Mia closed her eyes for 1 second. Just 1 second. She remembered something important. She remembered why she was here. But no one else knew that story. They only saw this moment. They didn't know the truth about Jason. They didn't know the years that led to this day. They only saw a quiet man with a limp and a slow voice. They didn't know the real Jason. When the priest continued, the whispers grew louder. Does Mia think she's a hero? Maybe she just feels sorry for him. This wedding will not last. But Mia didn't break. Her spine stayed straight. Her hands stayed steady. Jason looked at her out of the corner of his eye. His face showed fear that she might change her mind because of the crowd, fear that she might walk away like everyone else did before. He whispered softly, if you want, we can stop. The words were shaky, but honest. Mia turned her head and looked at him. Her eyes were warm. No, she whispered back. We go forward. Jason's breath caught in his chest. Then the moment arrived, the one everyone was waiting for, the one they were betting on, the one they believed would expose Mia's mistake. The priest looked at Mia. Mia Johnson, he said clearly. Do you take Jason Miller to be your husband? Everything went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. People leaned forward in their chairs. Tina smirked. Chloe held her breath. A few guests pulled out their phones quietly, expecting a dramatic moment, maybe a running bride, maybe tears, maybe regret. Some guests even whispered. She'll say no. She'll change her mind. She'll run away. Jason trembled beside her. He kept staring at the ground, his hands shaking. He thought she would walk away like everyone always did. He thought she might decide he wasn't worth the fight. Not today. Not in front of all the people she once knew, people who judged him, mocked him, and treated him like he didn't belong. Mia took in a deep breath. She lifted her head slowly. Her eyes scanned the crowd, the same kids who laughed at Jason in high school, the same people who told her to avoid him, the same ones who thought kindness was stupid, the same ones who believed a person like Jason would never be good enough for someone like her. Then Mia looked back at Jason. Her voice was steady. Strong. Brave. I do. Gasps filled the room. A few people dropped their jaws. Some actually laughed from shock. But Mia didn't look at them. She held Jason's hand and squeezed it gently. And in that moment, Jason's eyes filled with tears, not tears of fear, but something deeper. Something he never felt before. Trust. Love. Belief. But the guests. They didn't understand. Not yet. The narrator's voice breaks into the moment, addressing the audience directly. But before you judge Mia Johnson, you need to know what truly happened. You need to understand the journey, the secrets, the pain, and the truth that brought her to this moment. So let's go back to the beginning. And with that, the story rewinds. Back to the school hallway. Back to when everyone laughed at Jason Miller. Back to the day Mia first defended him. Back to the moment everything changed. This is where the real story begins. Mia Johnson remembered the day she first noticed Jason Miller. It was a warm Monday morning at Eastwood High School. Mia walked through the crowded hallway, her books clutched to her chest, when she saw him. Jason was sitting on the floor by his locker, his books scattered around him. He tried to reach for one, but his hands trembled slightly. A group of kids snickered from across the hall. "Look at him," one girl whispered loudly. "He can't even pick up his own books." Jason's face turned red. He didn't say anything. He just bent down slowly, carefully picking up the books. Most kids walked past, laughing, pretending not to notice. Everyone knew Jason was different. His limp made him an easy target. His slow speech made him an easy joke. And because he didn't fight back, people assumed he was weak. But Mia didn't walk past. She stopped. She knelt beside him. "Here," she said, picking up a few of his books. "Let me help." Jason looked up at her, surprised. Thanks," he stammered softly. The kids who had been watching gasped. Some whispered behind her back. "Why is Mia Johnson helping him? He's nobody." Mia ignored them. She helped Jason gather his books, smiled at him, and then walked with him to class. She didn't care what anyone thought. After that day, something changed. Jason started to look forward to school. Not because he liked the hallways or the teachers, but because of Mia. She didn't laugh at him. She didn't judge him. She treated him like a person who mattered. But Mia's so-called friends Tina and Chloe were furious. They pulled her aside during lunch one day. "Why are you wasting time on him?" Tina asked, rolling her eyes. "He's a loser. Everyone knows it." Chloe nodded. "You could have the best guys in school, Mia. Why do you care about him? It makes you look strange." Mia looked at them calmly. "Because he's kind," she said. "And he doesn't deserve the way people treat him." Tina laughed. "Kind? That's not a reason to be friends with someone. Everyone will laugh at you too." Mia didn't answer. She walked away. That afternoon, she found Jason sitting under a tree near the gym. He looked nervous. I don't want to cause problems for you," he said quietly. Mia smiled. "You're not causing problems. I like helping you. That's it." From that day, their friendship grew. Mia helped Jason with homework. She encouraged him to speak up in class. She even stood beside him when others laughed. And Jason, slowly, he began to change. He walked taller. His voice grew stronger. And for the first time, he believed he could do something important. But it wasn't easy. High school was harsh. Kids whispered, shoved, and made fun of anyone who was different. Mia faced their insults too. "You're wasting your time," Tina would say. "He'll never be anything." Why do you care? And Chloe added, don't tell me you like him. You can do so much better. But Mia ignored them. She knew kindness was not weakness. She knew Jason had something special inside him. One winter day, things got worse. Jason was cornered in the cafeteria by a group of older boys. They laughed at his limp, called him names, and pushed him around. Mia saw it from across the room. Without thinking, she ran to him. Leave him alone, she shouted. Her voice was loud, clear, and full of anger. The boys froze. They hadn't expected anyone to stand up for Jason. Mia grabbed his hand and pulled him away. Some kids whispered, impressed by her courage. Others rolled their eyes, thinking she was making a scene. After that incident, Jason looked at Mia differently. He realized that she believed in him when no one else did. That small act of courage made him feel stronger. He started working harder in school, dreaming bigger, imagining a future where he wasn't just the boy everyone laughed at. Mia watched him quietly, proud of how far he had come. But she also felt the weight of everyone's judgment. Every day, she saw the sneers, the whispers, the sideways glances. And every day, she reminded herself, kindness is stronger than fear. By the time they graduated, people had started to notice the change. Jason walked with confidence now, his eyes held a quiet determination. And Mia had become even more certain that helping him was the right choice. Little did anyone know, this small friendship in high school would grow into something much bigger. Something that would shock everyone one day. Because kindness, courage, and belief in someone can change not just a person but the world around them. And in Jason's case, it would change the world for him and for Mia forever. High school ended, but life was far from easy for Jason Miller. He had graduated with his diploma, but most people still didn't see his potential. The same kids who laughed at him before Tina, Chloe, and their friends walked into the world confident, thinking they had already won. Mia Johnson, however, stayed by Jason's side. Their friendship had grown strong through the years. And Mia had learned something about Jason that no one else did: he was brilliant. Jason had always loved computers. Ever since he was a child, he had spent hours learning coding on an old, broken laptop. What no one realized was that his slow speech and limp were just small parts of him. They didn't show the sharp mind behind his quiet eyes. One evening, Mia visited him at his small apartment. Books were stacked on the floor, and pieces of paper covered the desk. Jason was working on something that looked impossible to understand. "What are you doing?" Mia asked curiously. Jason smiled nervously. I'm building an app, something that could help a lot of people." Mia tilted her head. "Really? You? The same Jason everyone laughed at?" Jason laughed softly. "That Jason doesn't exist anymore. I'm trying to prove it." Mia watched him for a moment. She could see the fire in his eyes, the same fire she had noticed back in high school when he tried to speak in class or stand up to the bullies. Now it was stronger. It was unstoppable. Over the next few months, Mia spent every day encouraging him. She helped test his ideas, gave advice when he doubted himself, and reminded him not to listen to the voices of people who laughed at him before. Meanwhile, Tina and Chloe had moved to different cities but still checked Jason out on social media. They laughed when they saw his small online projects, thinking he would never achieve anything. But Jason didn't care. He didn't want their approval. He only wanted Mia's. And her belief in him was stronger than any doubt. One night, Jason stayed up late coding, exhausted. Mia noticed him rubbing his eyes and handed him a cup of tea. "You're pushing too hard," she said softly. Jason shook his head. "I have to finish. I want to show them. I want to show everyone that the boy they laughed at can do something real." Mia smiled. "Then let's make sure your app is perfect." Finally, after months of hard work, Jason's app launched. It was an immediate success. People loved it. Investors reached out to him. Media outlets interviewed him. Jason Miller, the boy who was once laughed at for walking slowly and speaking softly, became a name people respected. Mia watched it all quietly. She never bragged about it or showed off. But inside, she felt proud. Proud because she knew Jason's brilliance long before anyone else did. And then came the day he told her he wanted more. He took her to a quiet cafe downtown, the city lights glowing through the windows. His hands shook slightly as he reached for hers. "Mia," he said softly, looking into her eyes. "You saw me when no one else did. You believed in me when everyone laughed. I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" Mia's heart skipped a beat. She felt tears forming, but she held them back. She had dreamed of this moment, but it was even better than she imagined. "Yes," she whispered. Jason smiled, a mixture of relief and joy on his face. "Then we start our future together." But they had no idea what was coming next. Tina and Chloe, those so-called friends who had laughed at Jason in high school, had learned about the engagement. They were curious. They wanted to see the wedding and, more importantly, wanted to laugh one more time. Mia didn't care about them. She only cared about Jason. She knew the real value of kindness, patience, and loyalty. She had seen what Jason could do when he had someone who believed in him. Little did everyone know, Jason wasn't just successful, he was planning something that would shock everyone at the wedding. He wasn't just going to marry Mia. He was going to show the world how wrong everyone had been, how cruel laughter could never stop someone with courage, and how love and belief could change a person's life forever. Mia didn't know the full plan, but she trusted him. She trusted the quiet, brilliant boy who everyone laughed at, now the man she loved deeply. And in that trust, the stage was set for a moment that no one who had ever doubted them would ever forget. Because sometimes, the people who seem weakest are actually the strongest. And the ones who laugh the loudest may have the least to celebrate. The day of the wedding was approaching, and the excitement in Mia and Jason's lives was overwhelming. But it wasn't just excitement, they also felt a quiet tension in the air. They both knew that people who had once laughed at Jason would be watching, waiting for a mistake, a slip, or some sign that Mia had made a wrong choice. Jason, however, was no longer the quiet, timid boy he once was. His app had gone viral months ago, making headlines across the country. Investors, news reporters, and fans reached out to him constantly. He had transformed his small apartment projects into a full tech company, employing dozens of people, and his success was growing every day. Yet despite all the attention and the fame, Jason remained humble. He never bragged. He never tried to show off. He only wanted Mia to know the truth: he had always been more than what people saw in high school. And Mia, of course, already knew. One afternoon, they met at the little park where they had spent hours during high school, studying and talking about dreams. Jason took Mia's hand, squeezing it gently. "Do you remember when we used to sit here?" he asked, smiling. "People laughed at me, and no one believed in me, except you." Mia smiled back, her eyes shining. "Of course, I remember. I knew you could do it all along." Jason shook his head slightly, laughing softly. "I didn't know I could do it this well. But you gave me courage. You showed me the strength I didn't see in myself." Mia felt warmth in her chest. "We've come a long way." Meanwhile, Tina and Chloe had caught wind of the wedding. They had followed Jason's success online but had assumed it was a fluke. Now, curiosity and jealousy mixed together, they wanted to see Mia's choice in action. They decided to attend, thinking it would be amusing to watch Jason fail in front of everyone. But when they arrived at the venue, they saw something they did not expect. The garden was perfect. White roses everywhere, soft sunlight shining through the trees, and Mia standing at the altar, radiant in her wedding dress. Jason waited beside her, confident, calm, and more handsome than they remembered. As the ceremony began, Jason's calm presence captured everyone's attention. He spoke with confidence, not the timid boy they remembered. He was not just a man, he was a leader, a dreamer, and someone they had underestimated. The priest began the ceremony, and whispers ran through the guests. Tina leaned toward Chloe. I don't think this is going to be funny at all, she whispered. Chloe bit her lip, realizing the same thing. Jason stood tall, holding Mia's hand, and looked around at the crowd. He knew the laughter, the whispers, the doubts. And he didn't flinch. After the vows, Jason surprised everyone. He turned to the crowd, his voice strong, carrying through the garden. I want to share something with everyone here, he said. I know some of you doubted me. Some of you laughed. Some of you said I would never succeed. And maybe you were right at one point. But today, I am standing here, not because of luck, not because of anyone else, but because someone believed in me when no one else did. He looked at Mia, smiling warmly. Mia Johnson gave me courage, love, and faith. And she stood by me, even when it was hard, even when it was unpopular, even when it seemed impossible. And because of her, I am who I am today. The crowd went silent. Even Tina and Chloe were speechless, their mouths slightly open. The laughter and judgment had no place now. Jason's words had turned the moment upside down. The boy they once laughed at was now a man who had achieved far more than they ever imagined. Mia squeezed his hand, feeling proud. The young woman who had believed in kindness and courage had now watched those qualities transform a life and the world around them. And then the priest asked the question again, in the quiet garden filled with stunned silence. Mia Johnson, do you take Jason Miller to be your husband? Her voice was calm, clear, and filled with love. I do. The words echoed in the garden. Gasps, then stunned silence, then applause began to grow. The same people who had whispered and laughed before now felt the weight of Jason's journey. The lesson was clear. Laughter at someone else's struggle could never match the power of belief, kindness, and love. As Mia and Jason kissed, sealing their vows, the crowd slowly erupted in applause. But the applause wasn't just for the wedding, it was for the triumph of courage and loyalty over cruelty. Mia and Jason turned to each other, smiling. They didn't need approval from anyone else. They had what mattered most, each other, and the truth that love and belief could conquer even the harshest doubts. Little did everyone know, the most shocking moment was still coming, the final twist that would make this wedding unforgettable for all who were present. The garden was quiet after the wedding ceremony. White roses swayed gently in the soft breeze, and the warm sunlight sparkled across the scene. Mia Johnson and Jason Miller had exchanged their vows, and everyone in the crowd had watched in stunned silence. But the story wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. Jason turned to the guests, his calm eyes scanning the crowd. Everyone who had ever doubted him, laughed at him, or whispered behind his back was still there, Tina and Chloe included. Their faces were pale. Their whispers had stopped. They couldn't believe the man Jason had become. Jason stepped forward, holding Mia's hand tightly. His voice rang out clearly. I have something to show you all, he said. Something important. Everyone leaned forward, curiosity shining on their faces. Jason smiled, then took out a small tablet from his pocket. He tapped the screen, and images and numbers appeared, charts, pictures of schools, and children smiling brightly. I promised myself a long time ago that if I succeeded, I wouldn't forget the people who were hurt or left behind. So today, I am proud to announce a donation from my company to help bullied children all across the country. Scholarships, programs, and support networks so no one has to feel the pain I felt when people laughed at me. Gasps filled the air. Even Tina and Chloe looked shocked, their mouths open. They had expected to see Jason fail or look weak. Instead, he had not only succeeded but had turned his success into a way to help others. Mia's eyes filled with tears as she hugged Jason. She whispered softly, "You did it, all of it." Jason smiled, brushing a curl from her face. "We did it. You and I." The crowd began to clap slowly, then louder and louder. People were impressed not just by the wedding, but by Jason's journey. His courage, his kindness, and his perseverance had won everyone's respect. Then came the final, most shocking moment. Jason turned to the crowd once more and said, "I know some of you laughed at me when I was young. Some of you doubted me. Some of you thought this wedding would be a mistake. But the truth is, every laugh, every doubt, every cruel word only made me stronger. And today, I hope you all understand one thing: never underestimate someone who is kind, patient, and determined." Tina whispered to Chloe, I can't believe it. We were wrong." Chloe nodded slowly, still staring at Jason. She was right all along." Mia held Jason's hand and stepped forward. She faced the crowd with her calm, confident voice. "Kindness, courage, and love are stronger than laughter and doubt. Jason never needed anyone's approval except for the people who truly mattered. And he succeeded, not because he wanted to prove anyone wrong, but because he believed in himself and because someone believed in him when no one else did." The applause grew louder. Some guests wiped tears from their eyes. Some shook their heads in disbelief. And Jason? He stood tall, proud, and happy, holding Mia close. Finally, the priest smiled and said, "You may now kiss the bride." Jason leaned forward, and their lips met. It was more than just a kiss, it was a triumph. A victory over judgment, over ridicule, over all the people who had ever doubted them. The camera flashes went off as friends and family cheered. But the most important part wasn't the cameras or the crowd, it was the quiet, unspoken understanding between Mia and Jason. They had been through the impossible together. They had believed when no one else did. And now, they had won. Even Tina and Chloe, who had mocked them for years, now saw the truth. Laughter at someone else's beginning cannot stop their ending. Courage, love, and belief, these are the forces that shape a life. As the sun began to set, Mia whispered to Jason, "We did it. Together." Jason smiled and replied, "And we'll keep doing it, together, always." The guests watched as Mia and Jason walked down the aisle, hand in hand, victorious and happy. It was a wedding no one would ever forget, not because of drama or gossip, but because it was a story of hope, courage, and true love. And as the narrator's voice rang softly over the closing scene, "Never laugh at someone's beginning. You never know their ending. And sometimes, the people who seem weakest are actually the strongest. And the ones who laugh the loudest, will be the first to realize their mistake." Mia and Jason's story had come full circle. From high school whispers and laughter to a wedding filled with triumph and inspiration, it was a story that proved one thing: kindness and belief can change everything. And with that, the screen fades, leaving the audience with a single, unforgettable lesson. Believe in hope. Believe in kindness. And never underestimate the power of love.